I want to start today with a number, and I have to be honest, when I first saw this stat in the research you sent over for this deep dive, I thought it was a typo.
I have a feeling I know which one you're talking about.
I actually went to double check the source because it just seemed, well, impossible.
The interaction count, isn't it?
It is. The number is 2,617.
2,617.
That's the number of times the average person touches their smartphone.
Every day.
Every single day. And that's just the average. For heavy users, that number can basically double.
You know, when you say it out loud like that, it sounds staggering. It sounds like a full-time job.
It effectively is. I was trying to do the math on this before we started. If you're awake for, 16 hours? That's about 163 times an hour.
Wow.
That's almost 3 times a minute. And look, I know I'm glued to my phone. I'm the first to admit I have a problem, but even that feels excessive. Do we really touch it that much?
Well, think about the micro interactions, right? It's not just opening an app. It's the tap to check the time, the swipe to clear a notification, the scroll while you're waiting for the coffee machine, the map check, changing the song. It's this constant low-grade tactile thing we have with the device.
And that is exactly why we're digging into this source material today. Because looking at that number, I realized this isn't just a bad habit. It feels more like a physiological dependency.
And the manifesto we are covering, Monk Mode, the algorithm for silence, argues exactly that. But it goes a step further.
Oh, yeah.
It argues this dependency isn't an accident at all. It's engineered.
This is where the source gets a little dark, but I think in a necessary way. It says we aren't just distracted. We're actually in a war.
A war for our mind.
Against the attention economy. So the mission for this deep dive is to unpack this manifesto. We're going to look at the philosophy, which weirdly goes all the way back to the Stoics.
Who definitely did not have iPhones.
Definitely not. And the modern neuroscience that explains why your brain feels like, absolute mush by 4 p.m.
And we're going to discuss a solution. A solution that, I'll be honest, when I first read it, I thought was completely ridiculous.
Oh, I thought it was absurd.
But by the end of the research, I was literally looking up where to buy one.
It involves putting your phone in jail. A literal plastic jail cell.
Yeah.
Before we get to the how, we have to understand the why. Because the source makes this really bold claim right off the bat. It says we need to stop thinking of distraction as a personal failure of willpower. And I have to ask, isn't that letting us off the hook a little bit? I mean, I'm the one picking up the phone. Isn't it my fault?
Well, that's the common narrative, right?
Yeah.
I just need more discipline. I just need to try harder.
Exactly.
But the source material just flips that script. It reminds us that on the other side of that screen, in Silicon Valley, there are thousands of the smartest engineers in the world. People with PhDs in behavioral psychology whose entire job is to defeat your willpower.
So it's me versus 1,000 PhDs and a supercomputer.
It's not a fair fight. And they're leveraging evolutionary biology against you. I mean, think about the variable reward schedule.
Okay, unpack that for us.
It's the exact same mechanism used in slot machines. If you pull the lever and knew you were going to get $5 every single time, it would get boring really fast.
Sure, you'd stop.
But because you might win big, or you might get nothing, your dopamine system just goes haywire. It's all about the anticipation of the unknown.
And that's the little red notification badge.
Precisely. That red dot isn't just a notification. It's a mystery. Is it a like? Is it a frantic email from your boss? Is it a funny meme from a friend? You don't know until you tap it. So every time you even glance at the phone, your brain is subconsciously spinning that slot machine wheel.
That makes so much sense why I check it even when it hasn't buzzed. I'm checking the slot machine.
You're checking for the payout. And the manifesto argues that these apps are designed to maximize that loop. So when we try to use willpower to stop, we're fighting our own biological wiring that's being expertly manipulated.
The source uses a phrase here that I found really powerful and honestly a little convicting. It says, we aren't multitasking. Because I tell myself I'm multitasking all the time.
Right. I'm listening to a podcast while answering emails and keeping an eye on Slack.
It feels incredibly productive. I feel like a conductor of an orchestra, but the source says I'm just deluding myself.
The phrase they use is microdosing distraction.
Microdosing distraction. Ooh, that hurts a little.
It's a brutal image, but it's accurate. You aren't doing two things at once. You are rapidly switching your attention back and forth. You're poisoning your focus in these tiny, manageable doses all day long.
I caught myself doing this the other night. I was watching a movie, a good movie, one I really wanted to see, and every time there's a slow moment, my hand just drifted to my phone. I wasn't even looking for anything. I was just microdosing a little hit of stimulation because the movie wasn't stimulating me enough in that 1 second.
And that is the danger. It retrains the brain to be intolerant of boredom, and it destroys the ability to do deep work. This leads to what the source calls the busy trap.
The difference between being busy and being effective.
Yes. And I think everyone listening knows this feeling. You get to the end of the workday, you're exhausted, your eyes hurt, you feel like you've been running a marathon. But if someone asked you, what did you actually build or write or solve today?
You've got nothing. You cleared an inbox, maybe?
You spent the day reacting to pings, reacting to Slack, reacting to texts. Constant notifications create this sensation of activity. Your brain thinks, I'm doing things, I'm responding, but that activity is actually preventing the deep cognitive state you need for complex problem solving.
Okay, let's get into the weeds on this. Because microdosing distraction sounds bad philosophically, but the actual data the source provides is even worse. They cite research from the University of California about the cost of interruptions.
Yeah?
And this is where the 23-minute rule comes in.
This was the part of the research that really made me sit up straight.
Walk us through this, because 23 minutes sounds long.
So the study tracked knowledge workers, and what they found was that once you're interrupted by a notification, even if you just glance at it and don't reply, it takes an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds to return to the same level of deep focus you had before.
Wait, hold on. 23 minutes. So if I'm writing a script and I get a text and I just look at it, then go right back to writing, it takes me over 20 minutes to get back in the zone.
Yes, it's a phenomenon called resumption lag.
But why does it take that long? It feels like I snap right back.
It feels like you do, but your brain is actually dragging what Dr. Sophie Leroy calls attention residue.
Attention residue.
Basically, part of your cognitive resources are still stuck on that distraction. You're looking at your document, but your brain is still processing that text message or wondering about that email subject line. You have to completely reconstruct the mental model of your work.
It's like closing a massive program on a computer and then trying to reopen it. It takes time to load all the assets back in.
That's a great analogy. It's not a light switch. It's a steam engine. It takes time to get back up to speed.
So let's do the math on that, because this is where it gets scary. If I'm working and I check my phone, say every 10 minutes, which, let's be honest, is pretty standard for a lot of us.
If you check every 10 minutes and the recovery time is 23 minutes, then mathematically you are never in a state of deep focus.
Never. Not once. The entire day.
You are operating at a permanent cognitive deficit. You're just skimming the surface of your own intelligence all day long.
That explains the burnout. It's not that the work is too hard. It's that we're doing the work with one hand tied behind our backs.
You're constantly taxiing on the runway, getting interrupted, turning around and trying to take off again. You burn all your fuel, but you never actually fly.
That is a depressing analogy, but it rings true. So we have this modern problem, backed by modern data. But what I found fascinating about this monk mode manifesto is that it doesn't just stay in the neuroscience. It pivots.
It brings in the heavy hitters.
It goes to the Stoics, specifically Emperor Marcus Aurelius,
who is having a bit of a pop culture moment right now, but usually for like grind set motivation. This is different.
Very different. I mean, Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome. He was running an empire, fighting wars, dealing with plagues. He was arguably the busiest man in the ancient world.
He knew about distraction.
He didn't have Twitter, but he had the Senate.
Exactly. And the source pulls a quote from his meditations that is surprisingly relevant to our smartphone problem. He wrote about the desire to get away from it all.
We've all felt that. I just need to move to a cabin in the woods. I need a digital detox retreat.
Right. And Aurelius says that's basically nonsense. He writes, men seek retreats for themselves, but this is altogether a mark of the most common sort of men, for it is in your power whenever you shall choose to retire into yourself.
Retire into yourself.
He called it the inner citadel.
I love that imagery, the inner citadel, but what does that actually mean in practice?
He's saying that true peace and true focus doesn't come from changing your GPS location. It comes from the ability to shut out the world, no matter where you are, and just be alone with your thoughts. It's about mental agency.
So the citadel is your mind.
The citadel is your attention. The source argues that to build something great, or even just to stay sane, you have to build a wall around your attention. You have to control the gates.
And the smartphone.
The smartphone is a breach in that wall.
It's a Trojan horse.
It's worse than that. It's like taking the gate to your inner citadel and just leaving it wide open 24/7 for anyone to just wander in. If you have a device in your pocket that buzzes every time a stranger likes a photo, or a news alert comes in about a disaster halfway across the world, you have surrendered your sovereignty.
You've let the barbarians into the library.
And you can't think when the barbarians are screaming. Aurelius would look at a smartphone and see it as the ultimate instrument of slavery. Not because technology is evil, but because it destroys the ability to retire into yourself.
And if you can't retire into yourself, you can't process your own life. You just become a pass-through entity for information. Input, output, no synthesis.
Which brings us back to the problem of agency. If you aren't guarding the citadel, who's running the show?
So this raises the big question then. If the problem is this severe, if it's a war for our minds and we're losing our inner citadel, how do we fight back? Because the source is very emphatic about one thing.
Yet willpower is not enough.
Willpower is not enough. This is the crux of the monk mode argument. We have this ego that says, I'm strong, I'll just turn the phone over, I'll just put it on do not disturb.
I do that, it doesn't work, I just flip it back over.
Yeah.
Or I disable do not disturb just for a second to check one thing, and poof, I'm gone for an hour.
Right. Because remember the enemy. You're fighting that supercomputer. You're fighting the variable reward schedule. As long as the phone is accessible, your brain is running a background process. Is there a reward waiting? Should I check?
Yeah.
And that consumes energy.
Exactly. So even if you're not touching it, just having it on the desk is draining your battery.
Yes. The cognitive load of resisting the urge is a real thing. And that is why the protocol calls for something radical. It calls for a physical barrier.
Enter.
The phone jail.
The timed locking container.
Okay, I have to play the skeptic here for a second, because when I read this part, I rolled my eyes. I'm a grown adult. Do I really need to buy a plastic box with a timer to lock my phone away like a naughty teenager? It feels infantilizing.
I had the same reaction. It feels silly. But the source argues that we have to be humble enough to admit when we are outmatched.
If you were on a diet and you had a team of chefs trying to force feed you donuts every 10 minutes, you wouldn't just rely on willpower, you'd lock the door.
Fair point.
Right.
So how does this box actually work?
It's brutally simple. You put the phone in, you spin a dial to set a timer. The source suggests starting with 60 minutes. You press a button, and the lid locks mechanically.
And there's no override.
Usually no. You'd literally have to break the box with a hammer to get it out.
That sounds anxiety-inducing.
Yes.
What if there's an emergency? What if the school calls?
And that is the number one objection. What if? But the source challenges us to look at the data. How many actual life or death emergencies have you received on your phone in the last year?
Probably zero.
Right. And most of these boxes have a setting where you can answer a call if it comes through, or you can use your smartwatch for emergencies. The point is to remove the access to the apps.
So walk me through the psychology of this. Why is locking it in a box so different from just putting it in a drawer?
It's the binary decision. When you put it in a drawer, the option to check is still there. Your willpower still has to actively say no every 10 seconds.
The background process is still running.
Exactly. But when you lock the box, your brain hears the mechanical whir of the lock engaging, and something strange happens. The background process just terminates.
The brain realizes, oh, the option is gone. I literally cannot check it.
So the anxiety disappears.
Eventually. The source describes a fascinating curve. For the first 5 to 10 minutes, you might feel more anxiety. You might reach for the phone and hit the plastic lid. You might feel phantom vibration.
And withdrawal symptoms.
It's literal withdrawal. But then, after about 15 minutes, silence. The brain accepts the new reality. It stops looking for the dopamine hit because it knows none is coming.
It's like being on a plane.
Yes, that's the perfect analogy.
You know that feeling when the door closes and they say, turn on airplane mode? At first you panic. What if someone needs me? But then 20 minutes into the flight, there's this wash of relief. You realize, well, I'm stuck here. Nobody can reach me. Yes.
And suddenly you can actually read a book, or write, or just sleep.
That is exactly the state the phone jail induces. It artificially creates that airplane mode environment on the ground. It forces you into the inner citadel.
So it's not a gadget. It's a tool for inducing a flow state.
It's a tool for reclaiming freedom. And that's a word we need to redefine. We usually think freedom means having options. I am free because I can access the internet, order food, text anyone right now.
But the source argues that's not real freedom.
No. If you are compelled to check your device every 6 minutes, you aren't free. You're a slave to the impulse. You're a slave to the algorithm. The lockbox, paradoxically, gives you your freedom back by removing the option to serve the master.
It limits your options to expand your mind.
Precisely. And in that 60 minutes of lock time, you bypass the 23-minute rule. You actually get an hour of deep, uninterrupted thought.
And the quality of work you can do in 1 hour of monk mode is probably worth 4 hours of distracted mode. Easily. Because you're bringing your full cognitive resources to bear on the problem. You're not leaking energy.
It really forces you to ask what you value more. Do you value the cheap dopamine of the scroll? Or do you value the deep satisfaction of actually creating something?
Deep satisfaction of creation. That is the trade-off. And unfortunately, our modern world is designed to sell us the cheap stuff. We have to fight to get the good stuff.
So, practically speaking, for the listener who's hearing this and thinking, okay, maybe I need to try this, what's the protocol?
It's simple. Don't start with a whole day. You will fail. The source suggests starting with the golden hour.
1 hour a day.
1 hour. Pick a time. Maybe it's the first hour of the workday. Maybe it's right before bed so you can actually read. Put the phone in the container, lock it, and then just sit.
And expect to be hard at first.
Expect the itch. Expect the boredom. Boredom is good. Boredom is the precursor to creativity. When you can't scroll, your brain is forced to come up with its own entertainment. That's where the ideas come from.
It's about being intentional. It's about deciding that for the next hour, I am in charge of my input, not a server farm in California.
That's the core of it. Who is in control, you or the device?
This deep dive has definitely made me look at my phone differently. It's sitting right there on the desk, just staring at me. And honestly, I feel a little bit of resentment toward it now.
That's a healthy reaction.
I think I'm going to order one of these boxes. My screen time is embarrassing, and I want my brain back.
It's the best investment you can make. In an age of information abundance, attention is the scarcest resource. If you can protect your attention, you have a superpower.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave the listener with final thought to chew on. We've talked about the science, the history, the plastic box, but there's a philosophical question at the end of the source material that really stuck with me.
It's a provocative one.
It is, and I want you to really answer this for yourself. If you cannot sit in a room alone with your thoughts for 60 minutes without reaching for a device, are you actually free? Or are you just a source of data for the attention economy?
It's a question worth sitting with, in silence.
Absolutely. So maybe today, try it. Put the phone in a drawer or box or just another room. Lock the door and see what happens when you stop microdosing distraction and start actually thinking.
Reclaim the citadel.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.
Take care.